Hello, I'm Sherry Truhlar with Red Apple Auctions, and I'm going to be giving you 6 different variations today on a traditional sit-down dinner gala. It seems like a lot of my spring clients have been moving away from a traditional sit-down dinner auction. They're looking for something different. The word that I hear most frequently is something more informal. So to that end, this is going to I'm going to show you 6 photos from different events. I think seven different events, that you can get a sense of what worked, what didn't work, maybe on the size of your crowd, your style of venue, some things to keep in mind for if you want to change what you can move to. The first variation is what I'm calling a modified sit-down dinner gala, and you might be saying, Sherry, wait a second, I see rounds, I see chairs, this is a sit-down dinner gala. Actually, it's not. They have food stations during the silent auction, and then when it comes time for the program, we invite people in to sit down. So as people arrive, they bid a little bit in the silent auction. That was in the first third of the room back here. Raffles and silent auction were back there. They get some food, they might migrate to a table, sit down, eat their food, go back to bidding. When it came time for the program, we invited people over into the area that you see here, where the tables were, and we pulled the air wall shut so that people couldn't go back to the silent auction. You were either in this side or on that side where it was dark. It was pulled. That wall was up. So it was pretty easy, not a big deal to pull that air wall. And then once the auction was over, we reopened that area and people could go back and finish bidding and so forth. What I liked about this is we created more immediacy than what they had done in the past. Prior years, the silent auction was scattered throughout the entire room along the edges. We wanted to create more of a vibe for energy to flow in that auction. If you think about a party, for that matter, if you think about a real auction, maybe you've seen Sotheby's, Christie's, if you think about the car auctions on television, very often those are seated in a theater style, which I'll show you that in a moment too, a theater style environment where they've kind of got people almost a little crammed. And the reason you do that is when people are almost uncomfortably close, there's a certain energy that starts to flow from that. And if you have a great auction, people are bidding, but they can't necessarily see where it is, and there's a certain just excitement that will happen in that kind of environment. If you allow tons of space, you lose that. So any auctioneer you talk to is going to say, I'd rather have too many people in the room, that the room is too small for the crowd, than the other way around. From your guest perspective, the guest might be, I want to stretch out. But stretching out means that they don't have to pay attention. It's also a bit like disciplining a child or a dog. If you have your dog next to you, it's very easy to course correct with the dog, right? Nope, pay attention here. Oh, we're going here, that kind of thing. If the dog is 50 yards away, you've lost the dog. The same with your child. In an environment like this, the closer I am to my crowd, the more success I have. I can look them in the eyes, I can read their facial expressions. When they're far away, that becomes less readable to me. So in this environment, I would like it even better if we could scooch these a little bit more tightly together, but I did like the fact that we're able to cut down that room by a third and put everybody into a tighter space instead of having them spread out throughout the entire room. Here is a variation as well, True Theater. This was an event I worked on Saturday. It was at a school. Now you can tell, perhaps, that this is a school because if you were at the Kennedy Center, you'd have a little bit more comfortable chairs than folding chairs. But the fact is it is a theater. Great audio and visual effects in a theater. At this event, we closed down the silent auction. We invited people to join us in the theater, but meanwhile they could swing by to the buffet, get some food, either eat that out there and then come in, or bring it into the theater and eat their food in the theater. Everybody's facing in the same direction. We're focused on the screen, focused on the auction. People are sitting shoulder to shoulder. It's a good vibe. A modified version of the theater was the theater inspired. This event is less than 200 people and it works well for them. We've got the silent auction back here. We closed the silent auction and asked people to join us over in the programmatic area over here. So they came over here, we kind of closed that down, turned off the lights, nothing going on back there. So they're invited to join us over here. What it looks like is this. At first, people all go to the bar because the bar is closed during the live auction, so they get a drink at the bar, but then they fill into those seats. Now, there's not enough seats for everybody, so we still have people standing at the side and the back, but let's face it, we've got some people who've got bad backs. They want to sit down. We've got people wearing 3-inch heels on a concrete floor. They want to sit down. So there's seats available to them. They're not assigned, but once they're seated, the people standing, the people seated, everybody's faced in the same direction. Theater inspired. Another variation, well, it's a theater-inspired variation, but it's in a gymnasium. So for those of you that are schools that have it in the gym and you're struggling with what to do, this might be an option for you. This event they've got this mastered. They have the silent auction, raffles, games, the bar, everything's taking place in this area. They have food stations set up. When people come in for the silent auction, when the food opens 30 minutes later, they can go get some food, and they sit in the bleachers to eat. Or they stand around and eat. There's a few cocktail highboys as well. When it comes time for the auction, we invite everybody to go over to the bleachers and sit down. The school also pulls out some benches. They kind of go right here in front of the bleachers so people can sit in benches as well. There's also a crowd of people that stand over in this area because they're standing by the bar. The bar is not open during the live auction, but it's there. We have some fathers who will go out into the crowd and serve wine and beer and water. So they have some access to beverages during the live auction. But the best part is that everybody is facing forward, focused on the task at hand, which is the fundraising. We allow probably about 20 minutes to invite people over and sit them down in the bleachers or the benches or standing over here. And that usually takes well, it takes the full amount, maybe 15 minutes or so. The first year that we did this, we tempted people to go sit down by offering them a cookie. They got their dessert if they would go sit down. So that was kind of a way to encourage people to go sit down. But this crowd follows directions pretty well. It's not a big issue. The next variation I'll share is what I'm calling a lounge style. In this environment, they've got the silent auction up here at the front. It was open after the live as well. So we bid for a period of time, and then we invited people to join us in the other 2/3 of the room. They had highboy tables, they had small tables that had 4 to 6 chairs around them. They had a big bar here in the middle of the room. I was over here in the corner. Now, unlike the first photo I showed you, we didn't have the luxury of pulling an air wall to keep people away from the silent auction. So let me show you a photo. I'm going to go down to this corner and take a photo of what I saw when I was on stage. Voila, this is what I saw. We have this table, these little tables. Most are for sponsors, but some of them were open seating. We had a lot of people standing here around the bar. And at first, people came down. So for the first part of the live auction, I'd say people were pretty much all over here. But as the auction goes on, people start drifting back, drifting back, drifting back. And as they drift back, they start talking. They get louder because the auction's loud, so they talk louder to be heard. And then the people on the edges here start to hear them, and they're like, paying attention to what's going on back here instead of paying attention to the auction. So you want to think of some way that you can draw people over and keep them on that side where the activity is. Maybe it's an air wall, maybe it's stanchions, maybe you're putting up a temporary wall of some sort. You'll have to think about the venue for you, but the idea is that to create that immediacy, how are you going to do that? Because having 320 people wander around a huge space is not going to create the dynamic that you're looking for. And the final variation is where we actually have dancing. Now you've got this added complexity of having a dance floor. To be honest, this is one of the setups I hate the most. And it's not that we don't see it a lot. We do see it a lot. Here's the problem I have with a dance floor is very often we don't have anybody on the dance floor except for the auctioneer. And so that means that I'm standing in the middle. My closest person is 20 or 30 or 50 feet away from me, depending on the size of the dance floor. And so I'm not immediate to anyone. And just like my example earlier about disciplining a dog or connecting with a person, I can't connect with people as easily when I'm so far away, which means that I've got to walk over to them. And this might seem silly, but here I am, click, 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 click in heels. and it takes a while to get over there. And so click, 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 if I want to get close to someone. If I don't, if I just want to stand there in the middle, and I can do my thing there. But there's usually a few periods throughout the evening where I want to have more interaction with the guest, and that means I got to go over to them. At this event, we had theater-style seating that was put up over in this area for the auction. These food stations were available during the silent auction, but once we closed the silent, we moved them off the stage. I went over, moved them off the dance floor. I went onto the dance floor, conducted the auction. People stayed off the dance floor. Nobody came on the dance floor. Just me is on the dance floor. It's almost like an invisible barrier. People see the dance floor and they won't cross that line. One thing that you can do to assist in this is put the tables on the dance floor. So these tables could have been on the dance floor to create more of an immediacy, and then when it came time for dancing, they could have been pulled off. So there you have it, 6 different variations. Maybe you got some tools that you can use if you're thinking about migrating away from a sit-down dinner gala. For other tips on benefit auctions, please head over to my website. That's at redappleauctions.com. It's where I hang out all the time. You can get a lot of information over there as well. Good luck to you in your benefit auction.